Hi there, I'm Manu and this is Italy Made Easy. But we're not talking about Italian per se today. We've been talking about language learning in general. I've been sharing tips for you to get started with learning a new language and how to really smash it, really conquer this language in the shortest possible time. Now, today is tip number 4. So in case you missed the first 3, look them up. They will help you immensely. Tip number 4, something that we haven't spoken about, but it's really important. What did I say? A language is made up of mainly 3 things. That's an oversimplification, obviously. The vocabulary, the words that you talk about, the grammar that puts it all together and that gives extra meaning about when something happened, for example, with verbs, and then you have the sounds of the language. If you could assimilate the sounds of the new language at the very beginning of your journey, you will find that your life is going to be a lot easier. Pronunciation is essential in any language, but especially for languages other than English. Why is that? Well, because as English speakers, you are used to people speaking English with an accent. You're listening to me and hopefully you are understanding me. But speakers of other languages, they are not used to hearing their language spoken with an accent. Not so much. For example, Italians are not very used to that. They're not that trained to understanding things when they're not pronounced correctly. So you should really focus on getting the sounds of that language down as quickly as possible. Now, how do you do that? There are a few ways. One way is, and it will come up in other tips, is to listen passively to that language. Just have it in the background and get to hear the sounds. But the best way for you to tackle the sounds of a language is to study it. It doesn't take long, believe me. It doesn't take long. I mean, some languages have more sounds than other languages. Italian doesn't have a lot of sounds, okay? English has a lot of sounds. French is kind of in the middle. But regardless of the language that you're learning, the sounds are limited. Okay, so even if the language had 50 possible sounds, how long will it really take you to be able to assimilate them? Not too long. For example, the first course that I recommend anybody wanting to learn Italian is to check out my pronunciation course, because in 3 hours I get you to understand how you should sound when you speak Italian. I'll get you to read any word in Italian correctly. Now, 3 hours, it might take you 6, it might take you 10, it doesn't matter. It's still not a lot of time for you to be able to pick up the Italian sounds and really make a difference between you sounding like an English person speaking that foreign language and you sounding pretty good, still with an accent. We're not opposed to accents. Accents are beautiful. They tell a story. They tell people who you are. So never be ashamed of your accent. Accent is only a problem if it hinders communication. Otherwise, it's beautiful, right? So what are good resources for picking up the pronunciation, the sounds of a language? Like I said, I don't know what language you're studying. For Italian, I've created what I believe is the best course for learning Italian sounds. If you're studying other languages, you will find something like that. But basically, once you have the material that shows you, or shows you how to sound, or once you pick up the sounds and you can, somebody is showing you what the different sounds are, practice them. Just practice them. For example, for Italian, the whole language is built around vowels. So if you get that your vowels are pronounced a, e, I, o, u, and then you pick any other sound like a b, and then you could try and say ba, be, bi, bo, bu. Do you sound good? Perfect. You've got 5 sounds already of the Italian language. Okay. They say p, like a p sound. Can I say pa, pe, pi, po, pu? Oh, I picked the funny one. Sorry. Think about it, what I just said. But yeah, and go ahead and practice. You will come across some sounds that you find a little bit more tricky. For example, an Italian sound that English speakers find tricky is usually tr. Tr plus a vowel. For example, like troppo. Why? Because English tends to palatize the T and make it sound like a ch, like troppo. And that's not right. Okay? But you fix it very quickly. And if you find a sound that is just too difficult, well, maybe you can live without that sound. It's totally fine. There are sounds in the Italian language that, there's one basically, that I'm not that good at. I say it the way I say it and people understand me fine, okay? But get the sounds of whatever language you're learning down, spend a week focusing on pronunciation, and then practice, practice, practice. And basically, by now, you have a clear goal. You know what you want and when you want to achieve it, and it's realistic. You are studying the grammar in your native language, so you're being told how the language works in your language, so you're not wasting time trying to figure it out. Somebody tells you, you get it. You are working on the vocabulary. You're learning as many words a day as you possibly can, and hopefully you're using time-space repetition. That way you don't forget them. And you have conquered the sounds of the language that you're studying. And now the fun begins. So if you've been with me this long, I have a bunch of tips that now get into the fun part of learning a language. I mean, personally, I find the first 4 tips really fun, but because I'm a geek and I love languages and I love being able to communicate to as many people as possible. And so that's why I'm addicted to learning languages, and I'm sure you are too, or you will be. So that's it for now. Grazie mille. Ciao ciao. Let's say you're 3 months into that language. It's a little bit too soon to be watching movies in that language.